In the small town of Horicon, Wisconsin, nestled among the serene landscapes and quiet streets, a dark chapter unfolded in the late 1980s that still sends shivers down the spines of those who remember it. The Tallman family moved into their new home on Larrabee Street, seeking a fresh start and a place to raise their children. What they encountered instead was a series of terrifying events that would change their lives forever. The Tallmans were an ordinary family, Alan and Debbie Tallman, along with their 3 young children. The house itself seemed perfect, a modest, comfortable place with enough room for everyone. But almost immediately, they began to experience unsettling occurrences. It all started innocuously enough. In January 1987, Alan and Debbie bought a second-hand bunk bed for their children. They set it up in the basement, planning to move it upstairs later. From the moment the bed entered the house, strange things began to happen. Unexplained noises, whispers in the night, and a pervasive feeling of being watched permeated the household. The family brushed off these incidents as mere figments of their imagination or the natural settling noises of an old house. But the disturbances escalated. One night, while working late shifts, Alan encountered a chilling sight. Returning home, he saw an eerie, orange light emanating from the garage. As he approached, the light vanished. He was sure there had to be an explanation, but nothing was amiss upon inspection. The children began to fall ill frequently, suffering from mysterious fevers and bouts of sickness that no doctor could explain. One of the most unsettling events occurred when the youngest Tallman child, a toddler, began to scream uncontrollably at night. The child spoke of a witch that appeared by the bed, a sinister figure with glowing eyes. The Tallmans, desperate and frightened, moved the bunk bed upstairs, hoping to dispel whatever malevolent force seemed tied to it. But the hauntings only grew worse. Family members saw dark figures moving through the house, heard disembodied voices calling their names, and felt an oppressive, malevolent presence pressing down on them. Alan reported seeing a grotesque figure with long, white hair in the garage, while Debbie felt the touch of invisible hands on her skin. In a desperate attempt to understand what was happening, the Tallmans turned to their pastor, who came to the house to bless it. The clergyman felt an undeniable sense of evil and advised the family to leave. But leaving wasn't an option for the Tallmans. They had invested all their savings into this home. One of the most terrifying incidents occurred late one night in early 1988. The Tallman's son was sleeping in the bunk bed when he was awakened by the sound of chanting. The room grew cold, and the child saw a shadowy figure emerge from the darkness. The figure moved closer, and the child screamed for his parents. Alan and Debbie rushed in, only to find their son trembling with fear, pointing to a corner where nothing was visible to them. The breaking point came when the entity seemed to target Alan directly. One night, Alan was alone in the house, trying to get some sleep, when he heard a guttural voice growling his name from the shadows. He saw a hideous face with burning eyes staring at him from the darkness. Alan fled the house, vowing never to return. With their lives and sanity at stake, the Tallmans finally decided to abandon their home. They moved out, leaving behind the bunk bed that seemed to be the source of their torment. Once they were gone, the hauntings stopped, and the new occupants of the house reported no unusual activity. The story of the Tallman house spread quickly through the town of Horicon and beyond, even making national news. Skeptics tried to find rational explanations for the events, suggesting stress, sleep deprivation, or even collective hallucination. But for the Tallman family, the horror they experienced was all too real. Years have passed since the Tallman family fled their home, but the haunting of the Tallman house remains a chilling reminder of the unknown. Whether it was a case of a cursed object, a haunted location, or something far more sinister, the events that transpired on Larrabee Street continue to evoke fear and curiosity, a dark chapter in the quiet town of Horicon's history. The Tallmans hoped to find peace in their new home, far away from the nightmare they had left behind. However, the psychological scars of their ordeal lingered. Their children suffered from nightmares and a pervasive sense of fear that something was still watching them. Alan and Debbie struggled to rebuild their sense of normalcy, haunted by the memories of the malevolent presence that had driven them from their home. News of the Tallman haunting continued to circulate, capturing the attention of paranormal investigators and enthusiasts. One group, in particular, was determined to uncover the truth behind the events. Led by Dr. Margaret Reynolds, a well-respected psychologist and paranormal researcher, the team reached out to the Tallmans, offering their assistance in uncovering the origins of the haunting. Reluctantly, the Tallmans agreed to meet with Dr. Reynolds and her team. They shared their harrowing experiences in detail, describing the events that had plagued them for months. Dr. Reynolds listened intently, taking copious notes and assuring the family that they would do everything in their power to help them find closure. The team decided to conduct a thorough investigation of the abandoned house on Larrabee Street. Equipped with an array of scientific instruments and cameras, they hoped to capture evidence of the paranormal activity. Dr. Reynolds believed that understanding the nature of the haunting might offer clues to how it could be resolved. Upon entering the house, the investigators immediately felt a heavy, oppressive atmosphere. The air seemed thick with an unspoken menace, and the temperature was inexplicably cold. As they set up their equipment, strange occurrences began to manifest. Cameras malfunctioned, recording devices picked up eerie whispers, and several team members reported seeing shadowy figures lurking in the corners of their vision. During their investigation, the team discovered something startling. Hidden beneath the floorboards in the basement was an old, tattered diary. It belonged to a woman named Agnes McCarthy, who had lived in the house during the 1920s. The diary detailed Agnes's descent into madness, driven by her belief that her husband had been possessed by a malevolent spirit. She wrote of dark rituals and desperate attempts to rid her home of the evil presence that tormented her family. As Dr. Reynolds read through the diary, she realized that Agnes had performed a series of occult rituals, possibly opening a gateway to something beyond human understanding. The diary entries grew increasingly incoherent, ending abruptly with a cryptic message: "The bed, it is the key." The team hypothesized that the bunk bed, which had been brought into the house by the Tallmans, might have acted as a conduit for the malevolent entity. It was possible that the spirit, once awakened by Agnes's rituals, had attached itself to the bed, lying dormant until it was disturbed decades later. Determined to test their theory, Dr. Reynolds and her team decided to confront the entity directly. They set up a controlled environment in the house, placing the bunk bed at the center. Using techniques derived from Agnes's diary, they conducted a ritual to communicate with the spirit, hoping to understand its motives and find a way to banish it. As the ritual progressed, the temperature in the room plummeted, and the air grew thick with an electric charge. The investigators heard a low growling sound, followed by a voice that seemed to emanate from the bed itself. The entity spoke of its hatred, its desire for revenge, and its boundless anger at being disturbed.